Thomas Jefferson once said, "The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in the government." The Second Amendment and gun control has been a big topic this year and in a few years in the past. And what people are forgetting is that the Second Amendment was intended by the founders to kind of be a sort of check and balance on the government. They had seen what a tyrannical government could do, and they wanted to ensure that the people had rights to protect them from an overreaching government. Again, that the founders did not want to see a repeat of history and of our rights being taken away. So the Second Amendment, its importance is that it's there to keep all of our other rights in place. Um, in the recent years, there's been a lot of challenges and complications to gun control, and it's been going on for many years, but it's just in the last few years it's really come up again. And it deals with how people interpret the Second Amendment. Um, the wording of the Second Amendment itself can be a challenge to this amendment. And there's two thought processes that go into this. And the first is when we look at the words, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. There's a group that believes that this means that we have an individual right to bear arms and that the government really shouldn't impede or try to control those rights, that we have that right, and that's what those words mean. And so we call that group kind of like the individual rights group. Now the second group will look at the words a well-regulated militia. And because of that, they call it the collective theory, and that means they believe that there should be some level of gun control at the local, state, and federal level. So that's kind of where we come in. And we saw this in the election this year, the Republicans kind of tending to be towards the individual rights, whereas the Democrats tended to be more towards collective rights. And that's what makes this amendment so controversial, is how it is interpreted by people. And that goes on to some of the court cases that have dealt with the Second Amendment. Now, the big landmark case happened in 1939, and it is the United States versus Miller. In the United States versus Miller, essentially the Supreme Court ruled that the federal government could regulate gun control under the National Firearms Act of 1934. And they basically said that the Second Amendment's purpose was to ensure the effectiveness of the military. So essentially, they ruled in favor of the collective theory, and that there needed to be some level of gun control. In 2008, in the District of Columbia versus Heller, they were looking at whether or not the gun ban in DC was unconstitutional, and in a 5-4 decision they decided that the gun ban was unconstitutional and that people do have an individual right to possess a firearm. So in this case, that they ruled in favor of individual rights. And in later court cases, and some more court cases, they've ruled more in favor of individual rights. So as you can see, it's still a very highly debated topic. This amendment still is very applicable today. It gives us the right to protect our families. It gives us the right to protect ourselves. It is a worldwide issue. This is not just an American issue. If you look all over the world, there are questions of, what level of gun control is right? Do we need gun control? So this is still a very applicable amendment. Violence in schools, violence just period. The question is, what's the best thing to do? And I think that this is going to be a topic that's going to be debated for some time.